family of God that Jesus comes to invite us into. The story that we just heard, with some parts in the middle of it, can be one that's a little confusing. It can seem to us as we read and hear the story that Jesus is rejecting his family, but as we'll come to see, he's not. He's creating an even bigger family that all of us can be a part of. So, how have you enjoyed being a part of Mark's gospel so far? Anybody got a chance to get through that yet? 54 minutes. 54 minutes. If you can read it faster, let me know. You know, it's funny, I was the least likely person to become a runner. Probably a wrestler would have been better for my size, but that's about the only thing I could do. And so they couldn't kick you off the track team, so I ran. And at my peak of speed, I ran a 6-minute mile, but not 6 flat, just so you know. It was probably 6:59 is what I'm guessing, but it was 6. And I was at the peak of my insanity in running, able to finish 2 Chicago marathons. And I know what that's like. So I try to put together in my mind that at Nike's Breaking 2 marathon in May of 2017, Eliud Kipchoge completed the marathon. This is 26 miles, 385 yards if you were counting, in 2 hours and 25 seconds. That means that he ran a 4-minute, 40-second mile 26 times and change. Studying Mark's gospel can feel like that. A marathon that is a sprint. From beginning to end, we are on a marathon journey to the cross and the empty tomb at a breakneck pace. There is no chance to breathe, no water breaks, no timeouts. But we're going for it. And the early church found great encouragement in this book, its immediacy and its power, and for the fact that they felt too like they were running a marathon at a sprint pace as they faced persecution, opposition, and opportunity that just kept coming. Last week you looked at Jesus' invitation for some to come running, the disciples, 12 plus, we think, but 12 for sure. This week you're going to find out who you're running with and what it's like to run the race together in the new family of God. Now, some of us like the word family. It is a positive word for us. We grew up in a good family or a better than average family, a family where we felt like we belonged, we were cared for, taken care of, and that we were given opportunities. Well, not all of us had that experience, right? Sadly, for some, family is a word that provokes more anxiety than sentimentality. For some people, family wasn't a safe place to be. For some people, family wasn't a place you never felt like you belonged. For some, family was a place where you never knew which end was up. For those of us who were blessed to have families of decent health and only humorous dysfunction, the good news is that God's family is way better than that. Even better than the best we had. But perhaps the greatest news comes to those of us who didn't have that family. To know that if you've been seeking those things that a family is supposed to give you of belonging and safety and security and love and meaning and purpose, you can find it in the family of God. That Jesus today invites us to join. You can find it there. You can find it there. It's there. I know so many people say they don't need it. All they need to do is have a relationship between me and God, but can you imagine what it would be like, how lonely that is? Just you and God, and no one else by your side to tell you in God's voice, you are loved. I'm here for you. Let me pray for you. No one to show up at the hospital when you need them. No one to stand next to you at coffee hour to catch up on the week. No one in your small group looking across from you and saying, that was rough. No one to pump you up on Sunday mornings. Just you and God. It isn't terrible, but it's not enough. Why settle for less than a relationship with God that brings you into the family of God, where brothers and sisters can be God in flesh for you? And so Jesus wants that for us. He wants us to be a part of a new family. A new family. That's what he's doing, is he's inviting the disciples, he's gathering together a new family. As I said, the text can be a little off-putting because it might make us think that Jesus is saying to have the new family, you must reject your birth family. But let's look at this quick video. I hope that will help us a little bit.
The family have heard these reports that Jesus is preaching and casting demons out, and they think, has he gone mad?
We're here to see Jesus and his brother. His mother is here.
When Jesus gets word that his family have come for him, he refuses to see them. He asked, "Who are my mother and my brothers?" "Here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother."
He's saying to his family, if you don't support me, I'm going to deny you too.
He won't see it.
It's almost like he disses his family.
Tell him we've traveled far. His mother is here. Sorry.
That's actually a rejection of the flesh and blood family. And I think his family would have been shocked by that.
He's out of his mind. Leave. Go.
James is not unlike us. I mean, can you imagine if your brother said, I'm the son of God, what would you say? I mean, obviously, we would think they're crazy.
It's a rough scene. Of course, we know the end. We know that he sought to Mary's care from the cross. He loved her. She loved him. We know that James, his brother, the one seen there arguing with him about taking him back and escaping this insanity, was the one that led the Jerusalem church until he was killed for it. We know that Jesus' family stayed a part of his life. But at this moment, it seems a little confusing. And perhaps the reason it seems a little confusing is not all of us have had to go through this, but some have. Not all of us have had to say that when we decide to follow Jesus, we have to leave family behind. For many of us, our family raised us to follow Jesus, and they're happy to see us doing it, and they're marching right along with us at whatever pace they can keep up with. But I imagine there's some of you that leaving your family wasn't an option. Following Christ took you away from them. The lifestyle they had led, the beliefs they held, the lack of beliefs. And right now you might even feel that as you sit here, that you left somebody behind at your house that didn't come with you and isn't interested, or you've left behind kids far away and wondered if they're interested anymore. Mark's audience is finding it painful when it comes to family. Think about it. They're Jewish, following Jesus. In all likelihood, their families never spoke to them again. I hope it's not that painful for you. But for many of us, the more we commit to Christ, the more distance can seem to grow. I know I feel that distance in my own family sometimes. My two sisters believe. Occasionally, I think they probably worship, but I wish they experienced the full joy of faith. How I wish that was a part of their life instead of some kind of a ritual occasionally undergone, like going to the dentist. I wish they were part of this new family in a way that's brought so much life for me, and maybe that's how you feel too, a little sad, but we must go and follow. And that may mean that we leave some behind, not to judge them, but to love them. But we must face it. Our way, the way of Jesus, is different than the way of the world. It's not going to allow us to always be together. In this new family, we are blessed that everyone's welcome. It's all in the family, and there is perhaps no greater need for anybody on earth beyond the sheer physical ones than to feel like you belong. Again, if you had a family that helped you feel like you belong on whatever wild and crazy way that they did it, you've had a much better time of it than others. You've had a much more blessed life than others, because having an awareness that you belong somewhere to somebody is one of the greatest assurances in life. But at times you may have felt less like you belonged than others. I know when I was a teenager, I had a time where I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. My family moved, so in 6th grade, I left my middle school with all my friends and moved to another one, and everybody hated me. So I thought, although there might have been some evidence of that. It wasn't easy either, because that was the very same year that God saw fit to give me braces and glasses and pimples. Yeah, do not recommend that to anyone. To top it off, the school I was at before, we were a bunch of readers. Reading was a big deal at our school. And so I went to lunchtime in my new school with a book, and I read at lunch and found out how it was not the same there. I couldn't feel like I fit in at all, and the worst thing about it for me was my hair. My wonderful hair. Every time I get my hair cut now, they go, "Oh, sir, you have wonderful hair. It's so thick and it's full." And I go, "Yeah, I got wonderful hair. I got one thing going for me now." Finally. But when I was a kid, the fashion was long blonde hair. Long blonde hair like surfers, sort of like Sandra Dingle always looks. Really cool. Long blonde. That was the cool thing. And I found that the more I grew my hair, the less it looked like long blonde hair. It just went up and up and up. I kid you not, I could do a fro. I could. You all remember the Partridge Family, right? Danny Partridge. Exactly. Wanted to be David. Always Danny. The only place that I found where I belonged in those years was God's great gift to me. It's probably the most influential experience I ever had. It sounds silly, but it was camp. I went to camp. I went to Christian Lutheran summer camp. And for a week as a camper, or when I became a counselor, a whole summer, I was at a place where I felt like I belonged. They didn't care about the glasses. They didn't care about the braces. They didn't care about the hair. They didn't care that I never had that growth spurt that I was promised. They didn't care, because the love of Jesus was at those camps, and that's all they cared about, the love of Jesus. It's amazing to be accepted for all those things that you feel like you can't be accepted for because of Jesus. And I tell you what, going to camp led me to going to Christian college. Going to Christian college led me to seminary, and going to seminary led me to church. Can't believe it. I've always felt there is one place I could belong. With you. With you. People who love Jesus. I hope you feel that way too. Love is why we're here, after all. Love is why we're here. Love. To belong, to know you matter, to know whatever you don't got going for you, you got one thing, and that's Jesus. Wow, that's a family of God. You know why the martyrs refused to recant their faith? They wouldn't leave the family. They refused to leave the family that had given them so much life. The lions were nothing compared to missing the family. Maybe you'd feel the same way. In this family, we have family values that are so powerful and important, they turn the world upside down. Now, there are a lot of organizations with great values. The Marine Corps has great values: honor, courage, commitment. You know, those values will lead them to not leave someone on the battlefield, no matter what the cost. Rotary has great values: service, fellowship, diversity, integrity, and leadership. Disney has incredible values: honesty, integrity, respect, courage, openness, diversity, balance, and extremely high entry fees. Organizations have good values. Whether they live up to them or not, I can't say all the time. But most of us don't encounter positive values every day. We're more likely to face negative values. Values that hurt. Values that destroy. Made me think of good old Gordon Gekko. Some of you might remember the movie Wall Street. He was a takeover artist. He would go in, find a company that was weak in some area or another, find a way to get enough shares and enough interest from the shareholders. He would take it over. He would tear it apart. He'd take the pension and whatever assets, and all the employees could go on the unemployment line. It didn't matter to him. He gives a speech when he's accused of this behavior in a boardroom. He says, "The point is, ladies and gentlemen," some of you could say this one by heart, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all of its forms. Greed for life, for money, for love, for knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind. And greed, you mark my words, will not only save this company, but that other malfunctioning corporation called the United States of America. Thank you very much. You heard that speech before? Gordon Gekko. It's 25, 30 years ago now. That's one of the values that you might encounter when you go to work. Or it doesn't matter what it takes to get ahead, or throwing people under the bus, his wise business practices. I don't know what values you might come across, but for the most part, the values this world offers are not values that I want to live in. It's not the water I want to swim in. It's not the air I want to breathe in. I don't want to live a life that's defined by how many toys I left behind, how many plaques I have on a wall, how many people's heads I've stepped on. I don't want to be a winner. I want to have glasses and braces and pimples and one other thing: to be loved and to love. We have core values in our family of God that are much better. And I believe those are the values that you can count on for the upward surge in mankind. I believe those are the values that have made this country great. I believe those are the values that will take you far in the world, even if you're not of the world. And those values are pretty simple: serve one another, forgive one another, care for one another, pray for one another, love one another. The fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Don't you want to live in that world? Aren't those the words you want to feel every day? Isn't it worth almost anything to be there in that, instead of hearing some jerk stand up in front of you and tell you greed is good? What do you want on your tombstone? He was a greedy man. Or he loved. he loved. Dang. Those are the values we have in this family. This is the family to belong to, by the way. Whatever family you experienced before, whatever groups the world offers, this is the family. A lot of people think it's all about believing the creed to be in the family of God. That's good to know what we know. But the family of God is characterized by love. From the very beginning, people said, these Christians are crazy. See how they love one another. Those are the kind of family values Jesus offers to us. And finally, family chores. I have to bring up the little work involved in me in this family. You're invited in this family by the blood of the cross. There's nothing you can do about that. It's done. He's done it for you. But when you're in the family, you have an opportunity to contribute, an opportunity to get involved, to make a difference, to take the ball down the field a ways. Family chores, I call them. Now, when I was a kid, my family chores were very basic. I had to mow the lawn, rake the leaves, shovel the snow. Obviously, they didn't trust me inside the house to do anything. Andy, you go outside. Go outside, mow the lawn, rake the leaves, shovel the snow. My dad, on the way out of church at the first service, I don't remember you doing those things. I'm saying, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Hours and hours, week after week. Now, did I do them joyfully, willingly, happily? Probably not. But does anybody here know the absolute pride in a teenage boy or girl who steps back and looks at a freshly mowed lawn that you mowed? I did that. I may be getting a C- in algebra, but I mowed the lawn. Or a pile of leaves so high that it's over your head and the lawn is nice and clear. Or a driveway that was piled with a foot of heavy wet snow, and by the time your dad pulls into the driveway after a long day of work, it's nice and clean. Because if you leave snow on the driveway, the tires make little marks that stay for most of the winter. So it just makes me want to shovel snow again. Anybody else? I'll tell you, some of us parents want to take the load off our kids. We want to give them opportunities. So we don't give them chores. I would say it's up to you. Mistake in my book. Why? Well, it's not so much about them being able to help out. Sometimes they are a big help. Sometimes they break more plates than clean them. I understand that. And sometimes it's easier to have a lawn service than have your kids mow the lawn. I understand that. But there is something about chores that's great, and that is pride. I did that. I liked mowing the lawn so much, I still do it. I like it. I have pride in it. It's kind of silly. Whatever. In the family of God, you can receive. It's okay. We're here for you. We're here to bless. We're here to love. We're here to care. But I'll tell you what, you will have so much more pride and more joy when you're a part of the team. When you know we met our budget because you chipped in. When you know that we got this task done because you helped them. When you know someone received healing and you were praying for them. That's part of the family of God too. It's not just an obligation. It's an opportunity. The family of God, it's an interesting thing. If you didn't have a great family, you got something great to be a part of. Even if you did, it's better. The family of God, it's a place where Jesus says everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome. We love one another. That's what we do. That's what we're about. And we got work to do. But it's good stuff. Welcome to the family of God. Amen.